Hello again, this is Michael from TOEFLResources.com, and today's video continues my guide to the speaking section of the test. Today we're going to talk about type 4 speaking questions. Those are usually called general to specific questions. Now in today's video, I'm going to start by explaining how the question is structured. I'm going to continue by giving you a few suggestions about how to take good notes. And then, most importantly of all, I'm going to give you some universal templates that you can use. Now, these templates are universal, which means you can use them no matter what the subject of the question is. You can use them no matter what the actual content of the question is. Now, the practice question we're using in today's video is once again from the official guide to the TOEFL. That's a textbook published by ETS. It's from practice test 1 in that book. It's the question about social interaction. Now, if you don't have the textbook, that's totally okay because the video is all about giving you universal strategies which work, again, no matter what the actual question is. Now, that said, if you have the book, you should follow along. It could be fun. The book is quite easy to buy. It's quite easy to download. So if you don't have the book, I suggest you find it. It's actually much better than most of the TOEFL books out there. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's begin with an explanation of what the type 4 speaking question is all about. Once you understand the question, you have an advantage over all the other test takers because you will understand that the question changes its subject every week, but the structure, the form of the question never changes. So this week the question is about social interaction, but next week it might be about the history of cinema. The week after that it might be about feeding habits of the giant squid. The week after that it might be about the fall of the Roman Empire. The subject changes, but, and I stress, the structure never changes. So how is it structured? Well, first, it always begins with a short reading on an academic topic. This is not a campus living topic like in question type 3. It's always an academic topic. Next, that reading is always followed by a short lecture on the same topic. The lecture's, a couple minutes long. It's on the same topic. The lecture always provides 2 examples related to the topic. That's where we get the name general to specific. The reading gives general information on the topic. The lecture gives specific examples. And finally, your response is supposed to focus on these 2 examples. That's not 100% of your answer, but it is most of your answer. Okay, so now that we understand the question, we need to know what kind of notes to take. You already know that you need to take notes, but you might not know what kind of notes or what specific stuff from those sources should go into your notes. All right, so the first thing that comes up is the reading. So let's first talk about what kind of reading notes you should take. To show you, I'm going to use my notes from this practice question about social interaction. The first note I took from the reading indeed was the topic, social interaction. That's a really easy note because it's usually just the title of the reading. The next thing I took was this note, this detail. People are in contact with each other on a daily basis. Now, I got this from the beginning of the article, from the beginning of the reading. Indeed, this was contained right in the first sentence. You should do the same. Take a note from the first sentence. Don't copy it directly, paraphrase it, use your own words, but get it from the first sentence, okay? And then the next and last note I took was this one. An example of social interaction is audience effects, which is that the work of people is affected by understanding that we are visible to others. And I got that from the end of the article. Indeed, I got it from the last sentence. You should do the same. So to repeat, your reading notes should be, first of all, the topic, second of all, something from the first sentence, and then something from the end of the article, something from the last sentence. That's all you need, just these 3 little points. There's more, but you don't need it. Focus on this. Topic, beginning, end. That's what you need. Next of all, from the lecture. My first note was the first example from the lecture, the first example he mentions. And that indeed in this one was example of people tying shoes. And then I got 2 details that went along with that example. One group told they would be observed, the other was not. Second detail, the group that was told it was being watched tied their shoes faster than the other. Again, the first example, 2 details that go along with it. What did I take next? Well, go figure. I took the second example and 2 details that go along with it. In this case, example of learning to type. And the first detail, when we are told we are being observed, when learning something new, we perform faster, but will also lead to more mistakes. Example 1, detail, detail. Example 2, detail, detail. You should do the same. That is what you need to get in your notes. There's other stuff in that lecture. It's not important. What you need, example, detail, detail, example, detail, detail. Okay, so those are our notes. How do we start to organize our answer? Well, we use my famous templates. I want to repeat again before I put the template on the screen that the template works no matter what the subject of the question is. No matter what the subject is, this template is going to work. So let's take a look at it. We start like this. Say something like, the reading is about. Continue with something like, it states that. Next, say something like, the lecturer provides more information by providing 2 examples. Or the lecturer provides more information by providing 2 examples of, and then you can state what they are examples of. Sometimes this works. Sometimes you just want to be a bit more broad. Next, first of all, he mentions. Secondly, he cites the example of. In this way, the professor expands upon the topic of, and then you can restate the topic. As I indicated here, this concluding sentence is optional. You can leave it out if you don't have time. And in fact, most of you won't have time. It's up to you. So again, I repeat, the template works no matter what. Change it a little bit if you want. Instead of saying it states that, you could say it says that, it claims that, it points out that. Instead of saying he provides 2 examples, you might say he gives 2 examples. Or you could say by describing 2 examples. Instead of saying first of all, you could say to begin with. But basically, this template should be unchanged. It works. It works, I promise. So, let's take a look at how we can put this one into use for this question. So, here is an answer to the practice question. You can pause it to read it if you like. In a moment, I will read it myself. But as you can see, it's all color-coded to the template. It begins with the reading is about. It states that. The lecturer provides, first of all. Secondly, in this way, it follows the template. So here you go. I won't time this one. It should come out to about a minute, I hope. Here we go. The reading is about social interaction. It states that people come into contact with each other on a daily basis. It talks about one form of interaction called audience effects, which is the way that our behavior is affected by our knowledge that we are always being observed. The lecturer provides more information on this topic by discussing two examples of audience effects. First of all, he mentions the example of two groups of people tying their shoes. He says that people in the first group were told that they would be observed while tying their shoes, while the second was not. The result of this experiment was that the first group tied their shoes more quickly than the second. Secondly, he cites the example of learning something new, like how to type. He points out that when we are told we will be observed when learning something new, we perform that task more quickly. However, this often leads us to make an increased number of mistakes. In this way, the professor expands upon the idea of social interaction. And there you go. Now, I speak quite quickly because I'm a native speaker. You might speak a bit slowly, or a bit more slowly. Now, that means you might want to delete some stuff. What should you delete? Well, if you need to save time, the first thing to get rid of is this concluding sentence. It has no content, so it's not really urgent. Get rid of that first. If you still need to save time, get rid of some of this stuff. The extra notes from the reading. You can get rid of one, you can get rid of both if you need to. It's perfectly fine to just say the reading is about social interaction, period. The lecturer provides more information on this topic by discussing two examples of audience effects. That's totally okay. Again, the reading is about social interaction. The lecturer provides more information on this topic by discussing two examples of audience effects. First of all, he mentions that's okay. If you need to save time, get rid of this stuff. Okay, so that's all I have to say about speaking type 4 questions. I hope this video was useful to you. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave them below the video. And if you need more of this stuff, I do encourage you to visit our main website, which is TOEFLResources.com. At that website, you will find templates for all the speaking questions. You'll find templates for both of the writing questions. You will find about 50 sample TOEFL essays. You'll find descriptions of all the readings. You'll find top 10 lists of common mistakes. In short, you'll find lots of fun stuff that will help you get that TOEFL score that you need, that TOEFL score that you deserve. And meanwhile, I do hope you'll come back in a couple of days for our next video, which will discuss speaking type 5 questions. That's all for now. Thanks again for watching. Take care of yourself.